This is the call to order. So we'll bring the meeting to order. Next, we have the flag pledge. Flags to my left. And I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, next up, roll call. To my left, Steve Ryan. I'm your guest host, Jim Jordan. Christina Simpson, Julie Thies, Mary Schilling. Eric is out on a medical. So we hope he is doing well and recovering. So, okay, next up, item 3 on the agenda, approval of the agenda.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I have a comment about that. I would like to pull item 7D from the consent agenda, please.
Okay, there's a motion to pull the
I'll second that.
second. Okay, we'll go ahead. I guess we'll do the whole schmear if that's okay. There's a motion to approve the agenda and a second motion to pull item 7D, second read policies from the agenda. We okay doing both at once? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Steve? Aye, okay. Okay, the agenda is approved and we'll remove 7D from the action consent. Okay, next up, item 4, board appreciation.
Well, as you know, January is Board Appreciation Month, and we have some guests today. And so we'll start with our elementary folks and kind of elementary, middle, and high school. So we have some special guests. I don't know if anyone wants to start. Stacia right up front. So we'll start with Hillcrest. And so they have some little presentations for you.
My name is Carlina, 5th grader in Mrs. Horning room at Hillcrest. I'm Hayden, and I am a 3rd grader in Mrs. Farmer's room. On behalf of all Hillcrest 485 students and 73 staffs, we would like to thank you for volunteering your time and supporting our schools. To show our gratitude, we have 3 books that will be donated to our library in your honor. The first book is called Patrick Pickleball and the Longest Wait. We picked this one because we knew we might be a little nervous waiting to get up here and talk to you. Not only does this book have a little title, a great title, it also helps us to remember that using our imagination can make just about anything more fun. The second book is called Review, Revere, Engineer. This book helps us to remember to pursue things that are important to us with curiosity and persistence. It also helps us to know that we can learn from mistakes and failures as we work towards our goals. I love science. The third book is called Hello Universe, and it's a Newbery Medal Award winner, which is a big deal. This book celebrates bravery, being different, and finding your inner hero like Patrick Picklebottom. We had the longest wait from Amazon, but this book arrived just in time. Thank you so much for your support. Please come visit us at Hillcrest.
Do I get the engineer one? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you
we have
for
Ms.
that.
Cahill from in North Bay Elementary School. Come on up.
Want to step right up front.
Yes, you can do that.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us. I need to introduce the Henderson family here, and this is Eliza. She's in the 1st grade, and this is Maddie, and she's in the 2nd grade, and this is Leo. He's in the 4th grade. And we have got to know each other better and better this year. They are just an incredibly neat family, fantastic parents. Love seeing them around North Bay. They do a lot for us. The books that we've chosen tonight, so Eliza, can you nice and loud tell us the name of this book, please? And then.
Made by Maxine.
And we've chosen these books because they quite align with our push that we're trying to do for more STEM education at North Bay. And certainly seeing kids in our makerspace. So these 3 books were chosen for that very reason, and we are so excited to dedicate them to the board tonight. So on behalf of North Bay and the Henderson family, thank you, board, for everything you do for North Bend School District.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That's cool.
Thank you so much.
The board will take a look at some books and you have a chance to peruse those. So next we have our middle school. So our middle school team is a little under the weather today, but we do have our school librarian, Karen Hensley, and we'll introduce some students. So Karen, come on up.
All right, I'm Karen Hensler from the middle school, and I have Sophie Hill and Isabella Farmer here to tell you about the books that we've chosen in your own team.
Okay. Hi, my name is Isabella Farmer. I want to start off by saying thank you for letting me and Sophie speak tonight. The book which I have chosen to present to you tonight is called Keeper of the Lost City by Sharon Messenger. This is the 8th book out of 10 book series. In my opinion, this is a great book for both girls and boys. The main character's name is Sophie, and I just love reading about all the adventures her and her friends go through. Another reason this is a great book is because it doesn't fit into one specific genre. It has a little bit of adventure, comedy, and romance. Another great reason why I love this book is because it is a very clean book series, making it appropriate for multiple ages. Finally, it is an easy and enjoyable read. I want to say thank you again for letting me speak tonight, and thank you for what you do for our schools.
Hi, I'm Sophie Hill, and I wanted to say thank you for letting me and Isabella Farmer speak tonight. And the book that I'm presenting tonight is called No Fixed Address by Susan Nelson. And the message that I think is very great that it sends is that you never know when somebody is going through a tough time, even though they have a smile on their face. And I think it's great for both boys and girls to understand the point of view of never knowing when you could be one day away from losing a home. And I wanted to say thank you for giving us the ability to read books like this.
Thank you, Greg.
Good book reviews.
Thank you.
Oh, and we're not done yet. So, yeah. Sounds good. Bridges has a book so we kind of added Bridges in, and we'll talk about the book that they selected. And so Jake Smith is coming up.
Okay, Deshaun, this is Deshaun Willis from Bridges, and we have one book.
We know Deshaun.
I'm guessing it's gonna be some kind of. You got it. I think it's
Sorry, hello, my name is Deshaun Willis. I'm here to present a few books that we have been gifted by you guys. One of the books is Tuesday by Maury, An Old Man, a Young Man, and a Life's Greatest Lesson. Tuesday is a memoir about sports. The writer is Mitch Albom, about his relationship with his former teacher and mentor, Maurice Swartz. The book has value today, just as it was first published in 1997. It is an engaging story about real life conversation that addresses topics that young adults continue to face: disappointment, depression, loss in relationships, and perseverance. The next one is Gold Mountain, by Betty Yee. This historical fiction follows a 15-year-old Tam Lin Fan, she leaves China to navigate the challenges of 1860s California and personating her recently deceased twin brother in order to take his job building the Transcontinental Railroad in hopes of creating a better future for her family. The next one is A Song of Silver Flame, like night. Amelia Wen Zhao. This fantasy novel by Amelia Wen Zhao, the author of Bloody Hair Trilogy. I'm not sure of the trilogy person. I don't really read too much books. Is inspired by Chinese legends and myths. It presents an epic tale of a young girl struggling to survive an oppressive kingdom who finds out she has a mark that may reveal secrets to help her unlock past and liberate her country. And this one I did read, and I do personally like the book itself. It has a greater meaning to it personally. It's called Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. It is about a young African man who struggles with dealing with his brother's loss of death and gang violence. And it goes through because he's in this elevator for majority of it. And this elevator represents the stages of grief that he went through dealing with his brother's loss. And each one that he goes down is the one that just leads him to the bottom floor, which is inevitably the what he's gonna do, if he's gonna kill his brother's killer or not. So
might want to take a look at that last one. It's a graphic novel. So that's a little bit different. Again, it's some books that you might not be as familiar with. So might want to take a look at that one. I think that's all of our presentations. I want to thank all of our guests. We do have a little special treat for them. I don't know if you want to take a little recess.
Great idea. Let's have a 5-minute recess. There's cupcakes.
You guys cupcakes. We're gone. Then on to Sean.
All right, and we'll kind of, there you go, and right in that middle spot would be. Hold on, wait a second, Sean's getting the book here. All right, we're good. I'm gonna take a couple of them. Thank you, one more. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. You are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting if you'd like. So. Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. That was good. There was a book that intrigued me was, which one? Yeah, there's a lot. This Rosie Revere engineer made me think of my daughter. My daughter's an engineer. Good memory. Okay, next item 5, public participation. The board welcomes comments. And is there any before I read this? Have we got no public participation? Okay. I'm not even going to read that then. Okay, item 5 done. Item 6, communication, board reports and communication. 6A, any board reports? Make it. 6B, student representatives to the board, high school representatives. Deshaun and Taylor. Okay.
So we short tonight. We held the Army Strong Coast Classic Wrestling Tournament on December 9th and 10th. We had over 35 teams attend. This event brings in an estimated $250,000 to the local community.
We will begin signing up participants for spring sports on January 23rd.
Our band will perform on our yearly Funksgiving event on January 28th at the North Bend Community Center. Cost for this event is $15 per person, and dinner will be provided by our Blazing Bulldogs culinary program.
Our basketball teams competed over the break in several tournaments. Our girls placed third in the Newport Invitational. Last weekend, our teams played in the Sky West crossover tournament. The girls played in Eugene and the boys played in Klamath Falls.
We will have a mini cheer camp on January 21st and will then perform at our home game on January 24th. That's all.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you
gentlemen.
for having us.
Okay, next up, 6C, Association Reports, North Bend Education Association Report.
Hello, it's good to be back. I think I've not been able to be here the last, I don't know, I think I thought there was one, like whatever the date was in December, and I wasn't able to be at that one because I was sick. And so I was going to have Garrett come in my place. And so he was here and waiting for the chambers to open. And then we realized that I sent him on the wrong day. So anywho, all right. So Hillcrest students, families, and faculty are really excited and looking forward to our upcoming music performances. The 4th and 5th grade concerts will be held on Thursday, the 16th of January at 6 o'clock and 7:15, respectfully. They're going to be separated. The 4th graders, excuse me. Oh, yes, February. Thank you. The 4th graders are doing a calypso song, a West African lullaby, and a blues song, which will all include drumming ensembles and some xylophone players. And they're playing recorders as well and singing a fun pop song. The 5th graders are doing a similar program with drums and xylophones and recorders, but with a slightly more complex repertoire, and also playing ukuleles on a contemporary pop song that they love. The 2nd and 3rd grade concerts will be on Thursday, March 2nd, also at 6 and 7:15. The 2nd graders are doing a choral program that will include 2 beautiful rounds, one with American Sign Language, and the 3rd graders are including a small percussion ensemble with 2 of their pieces. And the Hillcrest PTA is also hosting a McTeachers night at McDonald's on Thursday, January 26th. So you don't have to cook dinner that night. You just come on down to McDonald's and the Hillcrest staff will be there to serve you. And it will provide support for the school. Overall, folks at the high school seem to be happy, and the consensus that things are going relatively well. Some teachers, including myself, are becoming increasingly frustrated with the students' cell phone use. And in my situation, it's a little complex because some of my students really need their cell phone to translate. And so sometimes, yes, it's being used as a tool and that's why they're there, but sometimes it's very much a distraction. And so it gets in the way of critical thinking. It's really hard to have a conversation and to dive into, higher level thinking when they're pulling out their cell phone and getting distracted. So anyway, without a consistent cell phone policy for the school, we have to spend more time and effort policing phone use, and some students are still struggling with this behavior, especially with attendance issues like tardiness and skipping. So that's something we're dealing with. We're also sad that Tylee is leaving and hopeful that we will have a new counselor soon. In fact, I think it would be really great if we could have 2 counselors because counselors are an incredibly 2 additional counselors, one to replace Tylee and a 3rd one because Rob is still there. But counselors are incredibly important to the functioning of the school. They not only provide services to guide students with their academic and career aspirations, but of course are increasingly relied upon to address social and emotional developmental needs. And this increasing quantity and severity of the issues that our counselors are asked to address has been brought to the attention of the administration multiple times by myself and past union representatives. The caseloads of our counselors far exceed the recommendations. It's recommended that there's 1 counselor for every 250 students. And this is an American School Counselor Association recommendation. And our high school has 722 students approximately, and prior to Tylee's resignation, just Tylee and Rob serving those groups. So that's about 360 students on each of their caseloads. The middle school has 500 students served by one counselor, and each of the elementary schools have approximately 480 students without a single counselor. And so it would just be great if we could have more. But anywho, moving on to something more positive. North Bay collaborated with OMSI earlier this week, and I lost my place. Oh, for a full day of hands-on immersive science activities and enrichment. And the students were very excited to serve as volunteer assistants. And I was able to see some of the images that were shared on Facebook, and it really made me reminiscent when I was the elementary science specialist. And I just like, so anyway, very, very cool stuff. So any questions?
I guess on the cell phone usage policy, is there anything out there, or did we have one at one time?
We don't have, like, as far as I'm aware, a cohesive decision at the high school. It's like every teacher for themselves sort of thing. At the middle school, yes, we do. It's like no cell phones, keep them put away. So this is something that's increasingly problematic, and feels like the consensus is that if there was a collaborative, cohesive policy, then it would probably alleviate some of the frustrations. So
What grade level were you referring to that you were talking about that they use them for interpretation?
Oh, I teach K through 12. So of course, my elementary students don't have cell phones, and the middle school aren't allowed to use them. But for example, last year I had a newcomer from China who she doesn't speak any English whatsoever. And so 8th grade, I made sure to communicate to all her teachers that she needs that cell phone. It's the only way she can communicate with anyone.
The students issued with a board book, would that be an appropriate use for translation?
Unfortunately, I've played with some translation devices on other platforms, and none are as good as Google Translate. And the other benefit that Google Translate provides is that you can hover your phone over images, documents, and it automatically translates it. It's not the perfect tool, because obviously some academic language isn't going to translate perfectly. And so sometimes you get a translation and you have to scratch your head and wonder, what is this trying to say? But even typing in directly or speaking and translating our voice, the Google Translate just has much more functionalities in that way.
It's not something that can be on a board book?
Not that I'm not familiar with the board book.
Can't put that as something that's on their.
You mean the Chromebook?
Yes.
They do have the functionality of Google Translate does work on the Chromebook as well.
It's not something that can be installed like an app or something?
It's on the browser. It's not an app. So the functionality that the Google Translate provides, but we're getting distracted first, because the number of students that I serve that need to use Google Translate, it's like 2 or 3. So like we can make accommodations for a couple kids. The problem is the majority of kids who are using it, for purposes they should not be using it for. They're not using it as a tool. They're on TikTok, they're on YouTube. So yeah,
Just not being present.
They're checking.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway. Is that all?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, 6D Superintendent Report, Kevin Bogatin.
Well, thank you. Again, I want to thank our administrative team and we had our guests here about sharing our donation to our bookstore school libraries. I know they mentioned this, but each of those books has a little insert, if you haven't seen those, that has a little special admission and recognition. In addition, we have one other thing for you today. So each of you, we'll let you hand those out real quick. So Mia is going to help me with another little present for you. You can open it up. I have a little, there's comes a little information comes with this one. So I'll start reading this as you open it. So in addition to the books, you are also receiving a North Bend High School Bulldog scarf. It's been recently updated and designed by our high school marketing and production class and other design classes. So they came up with an overall design concept and then wanted to add some hidden gems into the design to show some history and for the students to be proud of their design in their school. Obviously, the traditional school colors are incorporated into the design. And then Danny Alacali, our marketing and production CPE teacher, reached out to our high school historian and former teacher, Steve Gray, for some ideas. So on the Gold Bulldog side, there are two white line art elements like arrows. Those white arrows represent the very first graduating class of North Bend that had a grand total of 2 students. On the other side of the scarf, the students voted to have an Argyle look, LIGO look, and that includes 19 diamonds outlined in yellow. These represent the 19 state championships that the school has and are hoping, again, they'll hope to add to that. The heart on the state outline on both sides is obviously the location and love we all have for the Oregon coast. So on behalf of our community, I want to thank this board and their work and service to the community. So thank you for that. And we have a little bulldog.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I want to thank everyone who responded and was impacted by yesterday's lockdown at the high school. These situations are unique and always cause added stress and anxiety for students, families, and staff. We had a debrief session with high school staff this morning, and we'll review our protocols, response, and training from a district level in the coming days. I'm glad to be reporting to you that the incident ended without anyone hurt or injured. That being said, anytime we have an incident resulting in a lockdown, our staff, students, and families will be exposed to added trauma, as well as some added anxiety. We know that good and timely communications can help alleviate some of that stress, especially when the immediate threat is neutralized and law enforcement begins to do a more thorough threat analysis to determine the overall safety and security of the campus. I will work with our community engagement specialist, Tracy Lang, to improve our communication protocols, and we'll be sharing a safety update in the coming weeks as we review this, how we respond to this incident. Again, I want to thank everyone for handling this situation, calm, professional manner, keeping the safety and security of our students as a priority. In December, Corinne Ross notified the board and community that we would be taking a closer look at transitioning life skills services to the ESD. One of our first engagement sessions was with district staff on Tuesday, January 3rd. We had more than 50 staff join Corinne, Paul Peterson, our ESD superintendent, and myself to hear questions and concerns. We captured all great questions from this group of dedicated educators, and we will do our best to provide answers here in the coming days. I want to reiterate to the board and to the community that we are simply doing our due diligence to examine opportunities to improve our services to students and families and support our teachers and staff who work in our life skills program across the district. We have not made any decisions on this move and take this feedback and engagement process very seriously. So we'll provide a more comprehensive update at the February board meeting. It's been nearly a year since I provided an update on the Elliott Forest. As you recall, the Oregon Land Board has been considering the transition of the Elliott from a traditional state forest to a research forest by decoupling the forest from the Common School Fund. In December, the land board finalized the decision to transfer $221 million into the Common School Fund to replace revenue that logging on the Elliott might have had otherwise generated. This action creates the largest research forest in North America. New legislation also created the new Elliott State Research Forest Authority agency that consists of an initial 9-member board of directors. The next step is for Oregon State University to develop a forest management plan, and they will need to finalize a habitat conservation plan. There is interest in OSU partnering with North Bend and other districts that with the Elliott in their backyard, and I look forward to developing a strong partnership with them. And finally, tonight, I want to thank the United Way of Southwestern Oregon. They presented me with one of their Growing Gratitude Community Appreciation Awards. The certificate that they gave me just stated that Kevin continues to show up and do great work. He implements change, he cares, he volunteers, he collaborates. Kevin is an asset to our community and our district. Thank you for all you do. As everyone in this room knows, the work in our schools has never been more challenging. Once again, thank you to the United Way of Southwestern Oregon for this acknowledgement. And I also want to pass on the thanks and appreciation to the rest of our dedicated staff who work tirelessly on behalf of our students. So thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, next up, agenda item 8, Pele proclamation, action item.
Item 7.
Yeah.
Am I off one?
7, 8.
7D, the second read.
My bad, I jumped ahead. Senior moment. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, item 7, action consent agenda items. So we have already removed 7D out. Is that correct? What was that motion? So is there a motion to approve the action consent agenda items A through C?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the action consent agenda items A through C.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion with a second to approve item 7, action consent agenda items A through C. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sounds unanimous. 7D, what was our plan with that? Just table that and come back next.
Yes, I have more questions about that, and I'm sorry to be bringing them up on the second read. But I do have questions, so maybe we could get some clarification or talk about it in a board session or something at a later date.
A work session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to send questions to us. And obviously we don't have to pass this tonight, but if you want to send some questions, so we are in prep, we can do some prep in ahead of time.
Okay,
Yeah, so let us know your questions and we can take care of that.
Well, I guess we'll go back to item 8. Item 8, Pele proclamation action item.
Well, maybe I'll introduce this. Again, this is really a person board work. I was contacted over break. I don't know if you heard it. I don't have the exact date. Pele passed away of cancer in December. And this came about, if you remember our high school Bulldog Plaza dedication, so the little plaza, the big giant bulldog outside the high school, there's a quote up on the wall, and that is a Pele quote that kind of through this process, and they looked at a bunch of quotes, and that's the one they chose. And so the foundation started asking some questions like, hey, with this death, and we've acknowledged these words that people see and they first enter our high school for events. Like, shouldn't we do something? Like, what can we do? And like, they kind of were throwing out some ideas of let's put a wreath out, or let's do something, or some flowers. And I suggested that maybe we can do a proclamation dedication on behalf of the board. They all thought that was a great idea. So what you have in front of you tonight is kind of some work that Mia has done, and I think Tracy might have helped, and look together around trying to put some information that some background, and to do a proclamation tonight in remembrance of Pele.
Okay, so there's looking at the agenda, there's action requested is approval of Pele proclamation 2023 to proclaim January 12th, 2023 as Bulldog Plaza and Pele Recognition Day for North Bend School District. And I'll read the motion. I move to approve Pele proclamation 2023 as set forth above.
I'll second that.
Okay, so there is a motion. And that is, do I move to approve Pele proclamation 2023 as set forth above? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Do
Okay,
you want someone to read it? I read the proclamation.
yeah, we ought to read it. You're right. I thought it was good. I'll go ahead and read it.
All right.
All right, text of Pele proclamation 2023. Whereas the North Bend Foundation has chosen Pele's words to be inscribed in the Bulldog Legacy Plaza, and North Bend School District has chosen to commemorate Pele's passing. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the North Bend School District Board of Directors proclaims January 12th, 2023 to be Bulldog Plaza and Pele Recognition Day. And be it further proclaimed that the North Bend School District Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to reflect on Pele's quote in the Bulldog Legacy Plaza. And here it is. Success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you're doing or learning to do. Pele, adopted this 12th day of January, 2023. Great words, great saying. Great. All right, moving on. Agenda item 9, nursing yearly update. saw Kelly out there
Yes,
earlier.
she is ready.
Computer's making me log on again. My computer is the face recognition and it doesn't like my face.
Read one of these books.
Are you just looking for a copy of the?
No, I wrote
What's that?
I wrote
Oh, your presentation. The actual report will, I think we didn't get it posted up in time, so we will get that sent to you. I know she has a presentation, but the actual kind of over your annual report, I don't think you have a copy of tonight. Jim got one tonight, he did, so we'll get a copy of that.
So North Bend School Board members, Superintendent Bogatin, North Bend School District staff, and community members. Thank you for allowing me to share the annual nursing services report. The summary is in your board packet, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of that. I'd like to welcome first Ashley Taylor, RN, to our nursing services. Mrs. Taylor's been 2 weeks in the position. She couldn't be here with us tonight. We also wish to thank Shannon Hoffman, RN, for all of her care and service for our students and wish her all success in the future. I'm not going to read the report to you, but I will give you some high points. In school year 2021, 2022, we saw 16,648 students and over 10,000 individual visits. That's an average of 7 visits per student. And care provided every 1 minute and 23 seconds. In addition to direct healthcare services, we continue to provide health education and organized programs on growth and maturation, safe touch, nutrition, bicycle and driving safety, many other areas of physical and mental health. We continue to see unprecedented levels of anxiety in our students and staff. We attend resilience training and share those skills to try and implement evidence-based anxiety reduction strategies, including the CALM program. Our nursing goals for 2022-2023 continue from last year with a special emphasis on that anxiety piece. I also serve as an appointment on the School Nurse Advisory Group to Oregon Department of Education. So I'm in a position to be at the table to guide the future healthcare services for our students. To me, it's really important that we have a voice there and that the Oregon Department of Education is hearing from rural schools as well as urban. The board report, the list that you get is long, all the numbers. I am really proud of a couple things. We have a 93 to 97%, depending on what school you're at, immunization rate. The prevention of childhood diseases, I don't know if any of you are old enough, not exactly, but to remember polio, measles, mumps, pertussis that kill children. And we don't see those anymore. And it's a direct result of our immunization program. It's a lot on our minds because immunization exclusion, Oregon has actually 2 exclusion dates and the one is coming up in February. So we're currently involved in collecting that data and supporting our parents in getting immunizations that are missing or non-medical exemptions if that's what they prefer. That's something that's, I think, hidden work. And I'm glad that we on the Southern Oregon coast are at that above 90%. Other than that, I always appreciate the support of the board. We're out there taking care of your kids and we're privileged to do it. Any questions?
You mentioned anxiety. That's a big issue. Are
It's
there
huge.
two or three major causes of it, or are there major areas where folks are anxious about?
I think for students, the reality of rigor in education has returned. And I think we need rigor in education. But these kids lost a couple years, and we're asking our teachers that I predominantly see middle school and high school, but I support the elementary schools as well. But we're asking everybody to kind of be missing those fundamental infrastructure. You can't get that teaching time back. So I see kids in 6th grade with less confidence than they've had in the past. I especially see kids in 9th grade that are ill prepared for very appropriate demands of academics at entry level courses in 9th grade. So I think our counseling staff does get extra burden. We've never had this before. We have behavioral mental health specialists at each school, and I see their caseload the minute that they start. There's not a moment empty, and they're really accommodating to us. If I call and say, can you fit this kid in? I have a kid I need you to see now. They at least make a contact. But we in nursing, we've always provided mental health care. Nursing, that's a part of our practice. So I'd say academic rigor. You know, and I think it was Eva who talked about the cell phone policy. I helped put the away for the day policy in place at the middle school. They adapted that program. I cannot tell you enough how intrusive, invasive, and destructive unrestricted cell phone use is, not even just in bullying and kind of those straightforward things, but in terms of pervasive transmission of inaccurate information. It's really disheartening. And we've evolved into this 24/7 news cycle where it isn't as important to get it right as to get it first. And then that correction goes, you know, hidden, buried. And I see those kids. Yesterday is a good example. I had kids sheltering lockdown in my spaces. And I heard from other teachers, I heard from their staff, your teachers made that event less stressful. And I hope I did too for those kids. Because there was a long period of time before, when you're waiting for information, and North Bend PD was managing the situation, but it was stressful. And my population, middle school and high school, are very dramatic. And I think that's a piece of it. I think we all see the news, you know, there isn't a month that goes by, a couple of weeks, where there's a school shooting, and you're sitting in that room with outside entrances, picturing the worst, because you've seen those images barrage in there. It's longer than your question asked. I'm sorry, but
No,
I
good information.
really think we have a responsibility as a district to provide some boundaries. And that away for the day program that we brought up, it's a very accoladed board, and they addressed each question that you might have. We can get a hold of any kid at school if they're where they're supposed to be in 1 to 2 phone calls, phone call the classroom, office member going to the classroom with eyes on them. The phone is not essential. And I've used it in teaching in the high school for Cahoots and some of those programs. I've used it for Google Translate, but it's just a tool. It's not essential. And I could give you pages of data on blue wave, issues for brain development in kids. And I provide those blue wave glasses to kids that we've seen headache reduction. I track that data. It's not essential. And I think we've become this, and I think the middle school shows, and we don't use them at the elementary schools. If it was essential to go to school, we'd have to have them in our elementary kids. So I really jump on that bandwagon. I support that.
Okay, thank you. That great answer. Thank you, Kim.
On the calm, would you be able to send a link to Mia to send to us so that we can see what that's at?
Oh, yeah. I asked if I could, John Davison is the principal of my middle school, and the population of that is 5 to 12 years old, came through us through the National Association of School Nurses and the Oregon State Nurses Association. And I look for everything I can find on suicide prevention and resilience training and anxiety, decreasing anxiety in students. So this program came up through my professional organization. So I asked John if I could participate. I'm sorry, that's, yes, the answer is yes, I'll send you the
Thank you.
information. But I'm real excited about it because we've had our first student go through it. And this was a student who couldn't participate in the behavior. We selected them. I worked with the counselor at the middle school, Teresa Knudsen. We identified students. There were some criteria for them that are designed for success. But at the end of 6 weeks, the student is dramatically improved and their parents feel the same way. And it's real simple, but evidence-based techniques. That's what I want. I want something that somebody else did all the heavy lifting to get to that point. And then eventually I'd like to see it incorporated in our district wide with training for everyone who's willing, but especially counselors and nursing. And then because of School Nurse Advisory Group, I'd like to see ODE adopted. And the training is free. I think actually they send you, the training is free. It's out of UConn, University of Connecticut. But I'd be happy to maybe include that in the end of the board form, since you guys haven't had a chance except for you, Jim. I could include it in there and you guys are welcome to it. I was real pleased with it. Other nurses within the state, not everybody was accepted to do it. So I felt really privileged to be able to get access to that training. And the training was over the summer on my own time, but then the actual kid part is now. So we'll begin our second student this spring.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, item 10, updated, current, talented, and gifted practices information. Bruce.
All right, here we go. Glad to be here and to present tonight. I got the default nomination since Stephanie is unavailable tonight to do that. The presentation that we're presenting to you today, we will have in your email to you by Mia. We just got it done. We had late notification for this, so it took a little bit of time to put it together. You know, there's been changes at the state level to the rules and guidelines governing TAG out there, resulting in the need to update some of our TAG policies. So I thought today it'd be appropriate to go through what our identification process is, share that with you, and then explain to you as best we can at this point what the changes will be, what we see them being within our current TAG policy moving forward. Joe's going to go on the next slide. Our process basically begins an identification of a TAG student with a referral of the student. And that referral can come in a variety of ways. It can be by the teacher, it can be by the parent, by the administrator, or by a data review that goes forward. The vast majority of our referrals come forward through a data review where we're reviewing data that we have that's collected through some of the norm reference standardized tests that we have for those students that are achieving at that 97th or above percentile. We do have parent referrals that come in. We do have teacher referrals that come in, but oftentimes those teacher referrals that come into us are based on data and student performance that we see in the classroom. Students that score at the 97th percentile or greater on nationally standardized tests. That's a criteria for our current identification of TAG students. Some of the nationally normed tests that we use are our STAR testing and reading and math, our DIBELS testing that's out there for some of those early grade level students, K2 in there. And of course, the state assessment. All those are nationally normed and referenced tests that we used in there for academic identification of students within TAG. The other test that we use is intellectual testing or mental ability testing. And that's the COGAT, the cognitive abilities test. It's one we purchase and one that we use to identify that intellectual giftedness within students. Now, that's a fairly recent test. We haven't used that for a number. We just started using it, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. And we hadn't had a test before that. We did do some testing by our school psychs when it was identified as a possibility for intellectual testing, but now we test all students with that test. Those tests, according to what we understand, are supposed to not be culturally biased in there. They've taken out as much of that as they can to eliminate any of those issues that may occur. No single test measure is used. It has to be some kind of multiple measures that we have in there. Along with these test scores that we have here and we take a look at, we include a parent survey and a teacher survey as well. So there's multiple measures that we use as we begin that identification process. Once we have that identification in there and we see those scores at that level, we typically call a meeting. That meeting will involve the parent, a tag representative from the district, the teacher, oftentimes an administrator at that building level. And we meet to discuss that testing results and look at whether that student will qualify for tag. If they qualify and there are results there that say they meet that criteria, at that time, we identify them, a letter of notification that they are a tag student is issued, and we fill out a program and services form, identifying what we're going to do for that tag student to meet their needs in there. And it'll look different for every student in there typically, and it depends a lot on grade level. Most of our elementary and some of our early middle school programs are in classroom programs that we have, not pull-out services predominantly, differentiated instruction that accelerates instruction at different levels for those kids within the classroom so that we can get to the levels that they need to be at. We do not have specific programs that we pull kids out of the classroom for at the elementary level in there. So that's our process that we have in identifying kids for tag as we go through.
Hey, Bruce, what's
Yes.
the earliest grade kids might be identified at?
They could be identified. I think we often identify some in first grade. There are some in first grade, but typically the vast majority come in that second grade, third grade time period in there. Depending upon how they score and where they're at in there and what they're showing for academic levels in there. I can't remember identifying a kindergartner. I'm not saying we haven't, but I can't remember that happening. But I know we often do first grade, and then we see more identified in second and third grade moving forward. Heather, would you agree with that? Heather, is she still here?
We have a kindergartner last year that was kind of on the watch, just because we don't have enough data points really to make that decision yet. But working with the classroom teacher and the parents, they're pretty much offered the same kind of services within the classroom if they're on that watch list, because you know they're performing at a higher level. So they are giving them challenging opportunities.
But not quite identified yet moving forward. And they may very well be in first grade as we move along in there and have more information and can use that information to identify them. New legislation was passed. We talked a little bit about that, and that's listed here. It's going to require us to update our tag plan. When that guidance comes out from the state sometime this spring, we'll get that and we'll begin to update the tag plan, and then we'll probably be required to submit it sometime. I'm guessing if it works like it usually does, probably next fall, we'll have to submit our tag plan, and I'm sure we'll bring it to the board at that point as well. In that new criteria, they have said districts can adjust criteria for identification to ensure all populations are being represented. We don't plan to adjust the current tools we're using. We think that they do a good job of identifying students and hopefully have taken out most of the cultural biases that could be in there. There's a lot of subgroups that you look at when you do that. You can look at anything from students with disabilities. You could have a student that has a reading disability that still is intellectually gifted, that is very adapted solving some of those things intuitively in there. So we do that through our intellectual testing that we do in there. You could have economically disadvantaged students that may not have parents that advocate for them, yet can score very high. And through our data review, we can identify those students because we've got the data that supports that, and then bring the parents in and have that discussion. So we try to address those cultural deficiencies in there under our underrepresented groups as we go through. So we're working to do that. And we have nationally normed measures that we use in there. And we want to ensure that all students that meet the criteria are identified. And that's why we do that data review on those assessments that we have. And we have a wide variety of assessments and the screening tools that we do. And that's one of the reasons we put that intellectual testing back in there as well. I noticed in some of the policy updates that are there, the IGBBC is going to be eliminated, the deletion of that. And that's because that's folded into the other policies. It's not because we're not going to do some of those things on that policy. It lists a lot of programs and services that are opportunities for students. That's in our tag policies and guidelines in there, and that's posted on the website as well. So we still do those things. A current tag handbook will stand until we have an ODE template, have that filled out and then brought to the board, and we have it approved as our new tag policy to move forward. The one area I think that has made the change in there that we currently have implemented is the move from subject area identification and or intellectually gifted. That's what it used to be, to academically gifted or intellectually gifted. Now, we used to do subject area, which is reading and math. And you were either tag in reading, you were tag in math, or you were intellectually gifted in tag. Now it's academically gifted. You could have a score in reading, you could have a score in math on a norm-based standard, or you could have a score in science that puts you up there on one of our norm reference tests, that you could be identified for tag within those areas. So it gives a little more flexibility, and I think it does a better job of identifying those students and doesn't hold them back just because there's only one score in one area. So I like the idea, and I think we've talked about that, and it does a better job of representing who would be tag in there. And it does improve or ease the ability to get in there for a few students in there. I think that pretty much covers the outline of what we're doing and the policies that we see there. The other thing is I've included some links on there that takes you to our district tag webpage. Our talented gifted flyer gets a good overview of what our current tag policy is. The handbook is on there as a link, and you'll get the whole PowerPoint in there for you to take a look at. And then our instructional services option that we offer for kids is there as well for you. So that's an overview of our tag policy in there. I want to digress for just a minute, and I'm going to move on. There's two more slides I put in here. Last month, we talked about attendance. So I'm going to go on to one more slide here and just give you a little update on attendance and where we are on what's happened in attendance in the district. If you look at that one date, kind of in the middle, 329, that was the last day, number of students that were absent, the last day of school before our winter break in there, 329. We came back from winter break. We saw 182 students absent. And that's kind of hovered around that up to 273, back down yesterday to 225 students absent. So our numbers have not increased. You remember when we were looking at Thanksgiving, that week of Thanksgiving, 775 students gone. You know, we're back in that 200 range, about 10% of our population absent. And the last slide I have for you real quickly on here is going to look at how do we compare to a couple different years in there. The blue line is where we are this year in there. And you can see we were down at that 83% range in November, crept back up to 88%, almost 88% in December. And we're currently on a trend for 91% in January, and hope we hold at that trend, which is above where we were last year at this time. Not quite where we were pre-COVID, but I can tell you in all the buildings, we're working hard on that attendance and working hard to improve attendance across the board. So any questions I can answer on tag in there for you or attendance moving forward?
I guess just so I'm clear, to be identified as a tag student, you have to have tested in the 97th or above.
Yes.
Okay.
Either academically or intellectually.
Okay.
You go through. Yes.
And the attendance is an average of all the schools.
Average of all the schools. Yes.
I'm assuming we just gather that information from each school and then pull it into one report, which is what we're seeing tonight.
Actually, our data report, Who Knew It, is a data warehouse that we have that we can pull in. I could give you an individual report on each school. I did look at them, and there weren't any strong tendencies in one school versus another. So it was fairly,
Okay.
and if you want that, we can definitely do that as well. It's pretty easy. So.
So the criteria is something that we'll come back to the board, because we'll submit our plan. The plan is due May 1st. And so we'll come probably in March with an updated plan, vote on in April, and then we'll post it after that. So it'll come soon.
Hopefully we get the guidance before.
It's available.
Okay.
Just recently released.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Your presentation, was there a copy of that included?
That is going to be forwarded to, I think.
It's already been emailed.
Okay.
It should be in your emails.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 11, second read policies, talented and gifted policies, IGBB, IGBBA, action item.
Is that the one that we scratched in the agenda? the schedule of work session?
No,
No?
That was
Something
seven.
different?
was,
Okay.
that was a different one.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Maybe.
This was an update coming on the tag was to provide you an update on this. Because there were some questions that came out of that, so hopefully we want to give you the update on tag to help. So they understand why these changes were occurring in this policy to finalize. But again, really, you'll have there is still criteria, you'll have a chance to review that. Our current recommendations, most likely it's the same. What you come back with. What we probably come back with.
So for us on this, is there an action item to approve?
On the second read is an action item to approve that policy IGBB and yeah.
So-
Is it two? It's actually all three of those IGBB, and then IGBBA.
So when I looked in the board packet, what we have for IGBBA, talented and gifted students identification. I guess what confuses me is I heard Bruce say that it's for academically talented and intellectually gifted, but we've struck that, it's been struck out in this version I have here that's in the board packet.
That which part has been struck out, the policy?
Yeah, the words have been struck out to serve academically. It was academically was struck out and then intellectually was struck out. And this is on the identification.
Yeah, and again, I think they're moving this more towards a plan, and then the sort of policy is pretty broad. It says we're going to identify gifted students. And then the plan is really, I think they're trying to get away from those designations and allowing boards across this kind of board and community ownership of this process. So the criteria is really not being dictated by the state and really will be identified, and we as a district can decide what talented and gifted means for North Bend. We are hearing, I think I heard Tiffany say as part of their conference with other curriculum directors across the state and across the country, as they kind of have some of these changes, that there is like wildly changing kind of agreement on how, like, some school districts in different parts of the country are basically saying all kids are gifted, kind of almost to that extreme, and where others are setting really strict criteria around what that means. So there's really kind of an openness around what does it really mean to be talented and gifted. And again, we'll do a little more feedback from our team, come back with some recommendations, but that's why you see a lot of that stuff, because it's basically they're saying is, well, we don't have to have intellectually gifted or academically gifted. They were guided that before. Now it's more broadly open to how you identify, with the goal of having more kids from kind of diverse populations potentially be identified. Again, I don't think that necessarily is something that we're going to be recommending.
Mhm. Well, I guess just speaking as a board member personally, I mean, I like the part where it says academically talented and intellectually gifted. And personally, and I'm under 8, I like the identified students shall score at or above the 97th percentile on those tests, that section that's struck out. So
Yeah, so I think the actual guidance of how you have become identified will be addressed in the plan and not necessarily in policy. So the plan that you approve, so we will come back and have board approval on the plan around what does it mean to be identified in North Bend. The policy gives kind of the much more broader leeway for boards across our state to kind of do what they want to do in this area. Again, we all adopt the same policies typically, or pretty close to it. But again, you certainly can do what you want to do as a board in terms of board policy. But I'm just kind of, that was, I think that were some of the questions, and OSBA has reflected why it's been written the way it has, and it's due to those law changes allowing boards to have more local control in this. And so the policy reflects that.
Okay, I would like to wait until all of this is resolved and we come back and maybe clean this up, because the part that says this district is committed to, that means us, the board, and it's a little messy right now to me. And I see words that are eliminated that I would like to be left in there.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to, again, I think we were seeing some of these policies. I don't know whether, again, there's can be a smaller work group to come and pull some of these, or again, add it in a work session or in a board session. So again, this is, if the board wants more input in kind of some of these policies and direction and guidance. Some of this, sometimes we make changes, we'll make some changes and then throw it back to OSBA and have their legal team review, making sure that we're in compliance with state law. But again, I think we probably you have a lot of kind of leeway in what you want to do with this.
So we just, sorry, go ahead. No, I was just gonna ask, what's the timeline on the plan?
The plan will be due May 1st. I think that we have to upload to the state. So in the meantime, again, really, we're still following current. We weren't really recommending any changes to our current practice. So really nothing is going to change in terms of school district operations in this point, whether you pass this tonight or not, it really won't.
So we
change
could just completely ignore it for a while and get back to it later.
Yeah, you definitely can. I think the law changed, and so we want to have probably some update to this to reflect those changes, but we also have a plan. So there's some time to do this.
Is there any impact if we just ignore it completely?
We need some guidance, I think, on our current, again, I think we can ask that question to OSBA if basically saying is, let's leave our current policy in place. And is that in compliance with the law? I mean, if that's a question, we can kind of get additional information on. Maybe being a little bit more like what exactly has to be struck based on, so this aligns more with law.
Sometimes reading these makes me feel like somebody's completely bored and has nothing better to do and just like, I don't know, that's just my opinion.
I know some of it got merged around challenging identification and a process for that. So that's part of this policy change and trying to get that better aligned to our current complaint process. If you want to, so if you don't, well, so either we don't identify and you say, no, my kid's tag, and so I want to appeal that decision. There's a process laid out around to appeal and request us to reconsider a child's identification. And then again, it's aligned more to this process now aligns it more to our complaint process. So there's some of those changes that are probably helpful in this to pass, to clarify and clean up some old language. I can say this doesn't come up though super frequently. So again, it's not, there's not a level of urgency. I think this is one that is, I think we bring these forward that are required, at least recommended from OSBA to required by the board to take action or to make changes. To what extent is
How about we
required?
look into this when we do it on the other one that we struck out for tonight?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's a little time consuming to think
Okay.
about and talk about right now.
Yeah, so if you have, and again, if you have individual questions, send that to myself, Mia. We could do a little bit more additional research and come back with some other like clarity and maybe what I can also hear is we have all this strikeout language. At some point, maybe seeing this in sort of its completed form might be easier to read and dissect a bit because it is.
Probably some more detail.
Okay. All right, yeah, we can take that. I'll work with Jim on kind of board planning and where we can take this on.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just, last comment before we leave this, I look at this as a process to identify highly intelligent, academically minded kids. And then the school district goes ahead and we develop a program that helps them reach their potential. So they don't get bored.
Yeah.
Or they're not challenged. So, okay, so we'll table this.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you for that. Good discussion. Item 12, audit report. And Kreider.
Hi, I'm just gonna come up real quick and introduce Laura Fisher from HMW Associates, our auditor. And Julie, if you were bored with the policy rereads, worry no more because. And I'm just gonna sit back down here and let Laura take over, but before I do, just want to point out here is my role as Director of Business Services. I get the opportunity to participate in the work that goes into this all year long. It's not just something that just happens like in 1 month, and more importantly, if things are going wrong in business services and in the district, it's something that I look internally for. This is an opportunity, I believe, where I can actually look towards others and give the credit. Our business services team has been working fantastically. Marina Wright did a fantastic job doing the groundwork and legwork and working with Laura getting this done. So I'm very proud of all of them. So Laura, take it away.
Great. Well, thank you. And thanks to you for making time on your agenda for me tonight. I know you've got a lot going on. It's like, I'm Laura Fisher. I'm here. Our office, HMW and Associates, CPAs and Associates, is located up Broadway in North Bend. and I've been auditing the district here for quite a few years. I'm not going to go through, unfortunately, I know it's a big disappointment, but I'm not going to go through this 50 some odd page document with you page by page. There are a few sections I do want to point out to you and kind of show you how it's organized. But I'd want to give you an overview of what an audit is about, kind of what's encompassed in that. And as Tim said, it doesn't just like, oh, we come this week and we do it, we, go away and write it up and here you go. It starts in May and it's just now ending. So it'll start again in May. And I'll actually start probably in March, scheduling dates and doing engagement letters, things like that. So the objective of an audit is to determine that these financial statements are in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that means that the district has to follow certain accounting standards. And so I need to check and make sure that they follow those accounting standards. And I also check to make sure that the numbers in their financial statements are supported by real transactions, that they're not just made up, or that they didn't throw away all the invoices and all they have is check stubs. So we do consider the possibility that fraud could exist. That's not the objective of a financial statement audit, though. We do plan our procedures so that hopefully if there is any material fraud, we will discover that. But that is not the focus of a financial statement audit. We did not discover any fraud. We did not have any findings this year. So that was a really great job. So this audit generally runs around 250 to 300 hours a year per engagement. We audit under 4 different sets of standards that govern us. So 4 different organizations tell me and my team how we have to do this audit. So we're following generally accepted auditing standards, which is different from the generally accepted accounting standards. And that's by the American Institute of CPAs. It says, here's this book, follow all these accounting or all these auditing procedures, depending on, the areas you're working on. State of Oregon also lays out standards and their minimum standards for audits of municipalities. And they tell us we have to audit things such as that you're compliant with budget law, how you have invested your funds to make sure that those are secure and you're not going to lose money, that you've complied with public bidding processes and things of that nature. We also audit under government auditing standards, which overlap the state's requirements a little bit, in that requires us to make sure you comply with grants, contracts, laws, agreements, and that thing. And then finally, we audit under, in your case, standards set out by the Office of Management and Budget. We audit federal grants. It's called a single audit because you have X amount of federal awards. We have to do some calculations and audit a certain dollar level of those. So we do start, as I said, in May with our planning. In June, we generally come in, we do tests of controls, we pull samples, we read the minutes, we do some of the earlier work that we can do so that we don't have quite as much packed into the fall. Generally, we like in August to start looking at student body books, start looking at some of the grant reporting and stuff and testing some of those because that is an entirely separate little piece of an audit. In October, we do analysis, we try to be on site, we do more testing, do a lot of inquiries. We meet with various staff people and get their input on things where in the financials, there could be some risk. By November, we're drafting. We have a huge stack of checklists and memos that we prepare. And then in December or January, we wrap it up and present to you guys. So I'm just going to go through here pretty quickly what's in the package. Do you guys have these with you or have you seen them? So there's a loose letter. There's nothing in here that doesn't show up in every single other engagement that we do. It's just a boilerplate auditor's communication, just because we're required to say certain things. So they're in there. And again, we've had no findings. On page 2, which is on letterhead in this packet, this is our audit report. So it's right up front. The second paragraph on that is the one in which we express our opinion. And this one says that in our opinion, these financial statements present fairly in all material respects, or are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. So that's considered a clean, unqualified, unmodified opinion. And that's the very best you can get. That report is now 3 pages long. It grows every single year, it seems like, from the standards. That's followed by a narrative discussion. It's about 6 pages long. That's prepared by the business office And it tries to put into narrative form whether things went up or down and why. So that's another section that you can read if you wish at some point in time. But then I'm going to skip way back because that's followed by some financial statements and schedules and footnotes. I'm going to take you back to page 46. And this is where the budgetary statements are. So you adopt your budget in May, June, and then here it is, 16 months later, and we're looking at how did you do? So page 46 is your general fund. The first column of numbers was your original budget. The second column was your final budget. The third column was what you actually did. And then the fourth column is the difference between what you planned and how you turned out. You have 4 fund types, so they're all following these pages. They're all the same format though. So you can see your total revenues in that first section. You had budgeted 53 million and you came in at 44 million. I'm pretty sure that was all due to the situation with Orva. Expenditures was 56 million, budgeted 42 million that actually came in or was spent. And so after you've made some transfers to mostly the capital projects fund, you ended the year on a budgetary basis with $4.6 million in the general fund. And then some of that is committed and dedicated for other purposes, but that's the total that was there. And so that's how you read these financial statements. The next thing, there's another half dozen pages of some schedules and things. And then I want to show you page 52 is what we call the SEFA. It's the schedule of federal awards, schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This lists every single federal grant that the district received. And the ones that have an asterisk over just in front of the numbers, those are the ones that we performed a single audit on. So we audited the Title I grant, and there were several pieces to that grant. And then we also audited the Education Stabilization Fund, the ESF or ESSER grants. And there were several pieces of that also. And so that schedule goes on to 2 pages, and you can see there on the right-hand page that you had $6.3 million in federal grants that were spent. You were awarded more than that because there's still quite a bit of the ESSER 3 and possibly ESSER 2 still sitting out there to be spent. Following this, there are some schedules and things that are required by the Department of Education to be listed. And then you'll see there's more letterhead back here because in the front, we had one report, and that was the report that the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants requires. In the back, we have 3 more reports, one for the state of Oregon, one for government auditing standards, and one for the single audit. And again, all of those are clean. There were no findings whatsoever. So anybody have any questions about the audit? I know Tim can answer the questions about the dollars because that's his job. Oh, and as Tim said, staff was marvelous. I'm not really, I was a little hesitant, concerned because we went all summer. We didn't get to do much because Marina was out most of that time, but they pulled it together very, very quickly. And I'm a little surprised that I'm delivering here and we were able to present or get it wrapped up by Christmas easily. Any questions?
I guess the only question I have around, and it was in a cover letter, and it talked about Orva, financial statements of Orva. Our report includes a reference to other auditors who audited financial statements of the Oregon Coast Virtual Academy, discreetly presented component unit as described in our report on the district's financial statements. This report does not include the results of the other auditors' testing of internal control over the financial reporting or compliance and other matters that are reported on separately by those auditors. So does that mean that yours does not cover Orva, or it's not included?
Right. Yeah, they
Okay.
have their own auditors.
They're out. Okay.
Yeah, but because it's considered a component unit, because their money flows through you guys, and without you, they may not exist. They have to be considered as it's discrete because they own their own separate body. Like for example, Coos Bay has Resource Link. Well, that's their own school, so it's blended right in as a fund. You won't see Orva here except on pages 6 5 and 6, there's a column that just shows their information. But it's not included, it's totally separate from your guys' numbers. So on page 5, there's a primary government, which is the school district, and then the component unit, which is Orba. And we're basically disclaiming an opinion on that, although we did, we talked to Polly Rogers, their auditors. We get letters from them and we share information. We say, well, these are the related parties that are known to us to be within the school district, meaning this is the board. And the key employees, and if they find anything transactional wise going on between the two organizations, they let us know. And then they give us a copy of their audit report and we just drop the numbers in here.
Laura, thanks for being here. I just have a quick question on debt service and that expiring debt service, and I'm sure Marina or Tim can maybe answer this, maybe you can help. With expiring debt service, what impact does that have as we look at that expiring and kind of financially for the coming year? I know that debt service is gone, but I'm gonna guess it's offset with revenue gone that we collect in taxes.
Oh, that would be for general obligation bonds.
So the general obligation bonds.
General
expired.
obligation bonds are taxable, are the tax proceeds.
So it's kind of,
Cover
we
this.
stopped collecting the taxes and now the debt service is also gone.
This is the one that had $80,000 and the 2013 bond refunding. Those were both closed out during the year.
Both expired.
Mhm.
And so that really a net impact positive to the district is really just neutral, like.
Yeah, because the money that was coming in, the tax money coming into that could only be spent to pay the debt.
Okay. I just wanted.
So
to
it just
make
still
sense.
rolls.
It was a significant amount of money, I think, over, on an annual basis around debt service. And so I think it's one of those, it's not necessarily something just because it goes away. It
Doesn't mean you have that money to spend now. Yeah, it's not like you're at home.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
No, I just want to congratulate our team on 0 findings. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So great job.
Great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura, and yeah, congratulations to our finance and accounting team. That's great. Okay, so there is a motion requested.
I move to accept the audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, prepared by McAdam, Nick Fisher, and Gordon LLC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. I move to accept the audit report for the financial year ended June 30th, 2022, prepared by Harwood, McAdam, Wartnick, Fisher, and Gorman LLC. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay. Thank you for the work on that. Okay, next up on the agenda, item 13, board comments. None? Okay. Item 14A, we have a board work session scheduled January 19th. That's a week from tonight. 6 p.m. here. And there's a couple items on the agenda. I know one of them is going to be a draft key performance indicators for the board to look at and consider. And Bruce, do you have any time tomorrow? Are you available for an hour? Any your convenience? I just wanted to stop by and okay, I'll get with you. Enrollment numbers, financial packet. And I think we're ready to close the open session.
Before you adjourn, Christina had mentioned the possibility of the board attending the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, their annual awards banquet, which I think is on your January 28th. There's also a high school, if you haven't been, Thanksgiving fundraiser event. That's also that night at 6:30. And so one was like, does the board, Christina was saying, hey, maybe we buy a table on behalf of the board for Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. But now it's also in conflict with Thanksgiving. And we can get tickets to the board to attend that. If you are interested, obviously it's a little fundraiser for them to do. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. I haven't been to it. I think this is the first year now since probably 2019 since they've done this. So
Last year.
they did do it last year. I think I missed it last year. Yeah, maybe I didn't attend last year.
Thank you for bringing that up. I totally spaced it.
Okay, I had a little note here. Yeah, so thank you, Nita. But I don't know if you want to talk, if you want as a board to attend as a group, we could help arrange that if that was something of interest.
Well, I think both of them would be really incredible to attend. An option would be that maybe we, as a board, could sponsor a table at the Thanksgiving and invite certain people to go to that in our representatives to like gift it to them to go and maybe be there as a guest in lieu of us so that we can attend the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce with that.
The Bay Area Chamber of Commerce banquet, yeah.
And so we have designated at Thanksgiving and then we go to, I mean, that's just an option. I mean, it's an idea. I don't know if that's something you can or can't do, but
I think both
We
of
can try to
those
make that
are
happen
great,
if the
so,
board is
yeah.
interested on, available on the 28th to attend either but one of those. events.
I am, my schedule's open.
Possibly, okay, it sounds like kind of
Okay.
most consensus on. I'll work with Mia, I'll work with Mia on getting some information out on that and see what we can do.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, item 15, close the open session. Thank you for coming. All the administrators and folks that came, appreciate Kelly also. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
And all the others. Thank you much. We'll take